that flame burning, even within a pandemic, so that when things are better, we will be better. And so I want to start with the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in explaining to us the theme for Tourism Month 2020. Tourism Month, as I said, comes under this cloud of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good afternoon again to everyone. It's a pleasure being here along with my colleagues, Mr. Williams and Mrs. Taylor Williams. As Mr. Williams said a little earlier, traditionally, Tourism Month is celebrated in St. Kitts during the month of November. And we have decided that despite the challenges that we are enduring, that we will celebrate Tourism Month 2020 because there is still a lot for us to celebrate. There is still a lot for us to share with our stakeholders. And we wanted, especially with the reopening of the borders, to make sure that we had a number of activities that we would be able to engage the general public, engage our stakeholders, keep people informed about what has been happening in the industry. The borders may have been closed for over 7 months now, but at the Ministry of Tourism and at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, we certainly have not been idle. Quite a lot has been taking place behind the scenes. Some not so much behind the scenes, because I'm sure most persons are aware of all of the training workshops that have been taking place to ensure that all of our stakeholders, traditional and otherwise, have been brought up to speed on what the protocols are going to be, because we are going to be operating in a completely different environment. Things have changed, and for the foreseeable future, we are going to have to understand that this is an environment that is going to demand of us that we wear our masks and wear them the way that they ought to be worn. We sanitize often. We wash our hands often. As much as possible, we observe the physical distance, the 3 to 6 feet, depending on where we are. We have to also avoid as best we can crowded spaces and so on. Those things are going to apply. So it doesn't make any sense for us to resist. The quicker we get accustomed, especially with the borders now reopened, to understanding that that is going to be the norm, the better we are at reducing spread of the virus. Now the theme, we have chosen a very interesting theme, I think. It's tourism, people, product, purpose, planning for posterity. That is the theme for 2020. And the theme was chosen to highlight the critical importance of the sector workers. That's why you hear people, our main stakeholders, and the entire society in rebuilding and the recovery process in the sector. It also speaks to ensuring that we innovate and we adapt to rebound with the required tourism infrastructure, the product, the types of product offerings that we will continue to provide for our guests so that they get value for money and that the destination remains very appealing, exciting, attractive, and competitive. And then the whole idea of purpose, remaining focused. It suggests resilience, perseverance, endurance, optimism, innovation, as I said earlier, and this idea that we have to adapt the resources that we have to meet the demands of the COVID-19 environment that we now inhabit, and most likely is going to be around, as I said, for the foreseeable future. So the whole idea, the planning for posterity, tells you that we are not just looking about now. We are also thinking about years from now. What we do now is going to impact generations that are going to be coming behind us. So it is about the present, yes, but it is also about how do we rebound? How do we prepare to manage, to continue to manage our tourism sector so that we all can go back to decent livelihoods as best we can. We may have to be very creative. We may have to do things differently. We may have to find ways of using some of the resources that we have not been utilizing as best as we can. We have to find ways to make sure that we put them to very good use so that our tourism sector rebounds and that it does well. So that is basically what Tourism Month 2020 is all about, even in the midst of this pandemic.
Now, PSU spoke about the sector-wide training and certification. Can we hear a bit more about that in terms of the number of workers trained, the businesses certified, etc.?
Well, you spoke about the transversal nature of tourism. Tourism touches just about every other sector. We hear about agro-tourism, we hear about eco-tourism, we hear about education tourism, sports tourism, all kinds of areas that we can talk about when we talk about tourism. And of course, these different sectors, they have their employees. And we wanted to make sure that our human capital, our people, our residents, our citizens were equipped to be able to go back to work and stay healthy as best as they can. And so the training modules made sure that it took into consideration all of the protocols that I spoke about, those general protocols that all of us must follow, but they were also specific. So if you worked at a bar, they spoke about what are the protocols for the bar environment, the accommodations. If you were somebody employed, for example, as a taxi driver, what was expected of you to outfit your vehicle, the plexiglass or the Velcro or the zippered plastic, so that you would separate the passenger from the driver. And they tried their best to make sure that they took into consideration all of the various types of jobs that would be captured in the tourism sector, and workshops were designed for each category of job and each category of worker. Of course, the list is a very long list. I can't begin to list all of the various, but I will tell you that to date, over 3,000 persons have been trained, and we are still continuing to train. So you would imagine that it's quite a task, but it is something that we understand that we have to do if we are going to ensure that it is done well, that we keep people safe. Our people here on island are confident, and guests who are coming in will also be confident that we are a responsible destination that has borne in mind that everybody's health is critical.
Now, Alistair, you are the tourism events planning manager. And of course, now when we're planning events and so on, there has been a lot of adjustments because of the pandemic. The pandemic has basically changed everything in terms of how we plan events and how we can go about planning events safely and putting certain measures and so on in place. Now, what are some of the activities that have been planned for Tourism Month?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Obviously, as you indicated, because of the pandemic, we've had to scale back much of what we would have done on a normal year for Tourism Awareness Month. However, as the PS indicated, although we've been through quite a lot, we cannot just lie down and play dead. We still have to keep the fire burning. Obviously, our tourism is developed with the destination needs in mind, and of course we've always been people focused, so we put quite a lot of emphasis on people, since they are at the center of our tourism product. Of course, Tourism Month, as you know, over the last several years have developed to be a series of exciting activities that are geared towards highlighting some of the developments, some of the vision for tourism in St. Kitts, and of course to encourage the general populace to do what it can to help to preserve and to protect the industry. We started, of course, with church service on Sunday, and of course in everything we give thanks, because as we, all of us have agreed that, the pandemic has hit us hard, and, we have to give God thanks, because, there are those who have had it even worse than St. Kitts. So we went to church to give thanks for the industry thus far and for our plans as we reopen for the rebuilding of the industry. That was followed by the minister's declaration and the address on Monday, and as you know, the focus of which was on our reopening efforts and what we can do collectively to help to stem the continued expansion of the pandemic in our own little way. We have a tourism and energy bar hop. It's the bulb and bar hop. We are teaming up with the Department of Energy. At the ministry, we are very keen on partnerships, because we believe that that is the way to go. And I think the pandemic has taught us that as well, that, as we move forward, we need to collaborate, and it would help to save, reduce money to some extent, but at the same time you find that you'll have some new innovative ideas coming out. So the partnerships have worked very well. And so we are teaming up with Energy on two particular projects. The bar hop this Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock from their premises at Needmos, and then it'll be going around, making its way around the island. And so they'll be distributing bulbs and information, and we'll be doing similar. Our focus for the bar hop would be on our plastic-free program. We want to keep that at the top on people's minds as we, even as we rebound from the pandemic here in St. Kitts. We want them to, and Diane will talk a little more on that. So that is on Saturday. Then on Tuesday we have our tourism energized soca size. That is also another activity that we are partnered with the Department of Energy on. And of course, fitness. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation, and so we want to make sure that we don't lose focus of that. So we have teamed up with Energy to present the Energized Soca Size session with Mr. Bagnall, and that will be at Flow Grounds at 5 o'clock on Tuesday next week. So we're encouraging the public to come out and support that event on Tuesday. Then we have our Family Feud, the tourism edition at the Vibes Beach Bar on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Those of you who have been following the Family Feud over the last several weeks would know that is a very exciting event at Vibes Beach Bar, facilitated by Zen Consulting, Noah Mills, and quite a lot of information is usually disseminated at that event, and we hope to do likewise at our edition on Wednesday. We want to emphasize a lot of the protocols and all the information that are necessary as we reopen our borders and we go forward. We want the public to understand, that they have a part to play as well as we go forward. And so we'll be having some fun, but at the same time distributing some important information that all of us should know and should keep in mind as we cautiously open our borders and welcome visitors back to our shores, and to ensure that our people remain safe as we do this. On Saturday, we have the Heart of St. Kitts Beach cleanup, Saturday the 14th, that is. And Daniel will also speak to that a little more, but we want the public to come out. And as we, similar to the fitness exercise on Tuesday, the beach cleanup is just as important. It's not just about cleaning for visitors, but it's cleaning for ourselves as well. We want to make sure we have a pristine environment, and that, so that the product can be long-lasting and be able to create some livelihoods for future generations. So we want members of the public to come out on Saturday. Diana will give us a little more information on that and help us as we keep our country clean. On Wednesday, we have our community tourism training workshop, and I think the PS spoke a bit about that, training as we open back our borders. And even before we did so, we've been concentrating quite a lot of effort on training and preparing our stakeholders and preparing our people for the new normal. It's not business as usual, and so we want to emphasize that we really need to make sure that we can innovate as we move forward post-COVID. So there's the training workshop on that date next Wednesday. The unveiling of our Rails to Trail signage will be on Wednesday the 25th. Rails to Trails, as you know, is a key community project of the ministry. We are trying to see how we can twin culture and heritage and livelihood. To some extent, we want to ensure that the trails are accessible and at the same time usable. The area is usable so that you could members of the community can ply their trade, and at the same time, it can be used for several different reasons. So it's a project that we started some years, about 2 years ago. And so we have gone back to Palmetto Point, and we want to continue that project, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to extend it even further as we go more into the rural area. So it's a revitalization of the Rails to Trail project. We want to unveil the signage in that area, and at the same time we want to encourage persons living in the Palmetto Point Challengers area to join with us as we seek to beautify the area and to make it more accessible, so that they can use it, for the benefit of the community. And so we want to encourage them to come out and support us as we reactivate that project on Wednesday the 25th. We will have more information going out as we go forward. We have our hike and lime on Saturday the 28th. Over the last several years, we've been hiking to various historical and other areas of significance during Tourism Month. This year, we are going from Station Street in Old World to Wingfield Heights. It's about fitness, a little bit of exercise, but at the same time, a little bit of learning as well, because as we do these hikes, these walks, there's so much we learn about our country that we didn't know ourselves. And so we want to invite persons to come out to the Hike and Lime on Saturday the 28th. We'll also put out more information on that as well, so that groups in that area, the Old Road area, and even those persons outside of Old Road, they can also join us and come out, have a good exercise, but at the same time learn a bit more about our destination, so that we in turn can share that information with others. Our tourism tasting showcase is the 29th, Sunday the 29th of November. As you know, we've always been keen on food. It is part of our build-up to our annual restaurant week, and apart from that, it's also part of the tourism product. Food is an integral part of the product, and so we want to continue highlighting not only some of the foods that are locally grown, but some of the local vendors and persons, people within the community who ply their trade as far as food is concerned, some of them in some hidden spots, and so we want to make sure that we'll always highlight them, so that people will know who's out there and what sort of offerings they have available on a daily basis. So it is along that premise and a build-up to our restaurant week project each year that we normally would present such activities. And so on the 29th of November, which is Sunday, we'll have the tasting showcase. It's likely to be at the SKNIS Eco Park, starting at 2 o'clock. So we'll bring more information to the public as we go forward, as we finalize. As you know, we are still in the COVID era, and so we are waiting for the necessary permissions and those sort of things, so that we could finalize all the details with respect to that activity. But that is slated for Sunday the 29th. And then, of course, we have our travel approved sealed program, which is ongoing, that is spearheaded by the SKNIS Tourism Authority for the whole month of November. That training is continuing, and as you know, the training is necessary for you to operate as we open our borders, and we'll encourage all stakeholders, those who have not yet participated, to call the SKNIS Tourism Authority to register and to be a part of those sessions. It is an opportunity for us to show the world some of the protocols that we are putting in place and some of the safety standards that we are implementing to make sure that our visitors and our own people are safe and secure as we weather the COVID storm. Those are some of the activities that we are engaging in during the month of November. And as I indicated before, we've had to scale back on our usual tourism month extravaganza, given the nature of the situation right now. But we are asking the public to come out and to support those activities that are geared towards the public. Of course, we will be maintaining all of the safety protocols at all of our events, and as much as possible, we're going to try to stream most of them, so that we don't have a situation whereby we are oversubscribed and then there's some issue. So as much as possible, we are following all of the protocols, and we want to make sure that we can celebrate Tourism Month in a safe and secure environment.
Thank you, Alistair. I realize that we are not out of business. We still have to keep going and to keep tourism alive, and that you're also partnering with the Energy Department.
That's
because
right.
This is Energy Month.
Energy Month as well.
This is Energy Month as well, so that is something good. Now, Diane Neal, you are the chair of the Sustainable Destination Council. We hear a lot of that word, sustainability, sustainable development goals, sustainable agriculture, sustainable tourism, and so on. what basically do we mean when we're speaking about sustainable tourism? It's not just tourism, but sustainable tourism. It's not just a destination, but a sustainable destination. What are we talking about?
I can put it very simply. Sustainable tourism is tourism that puts the destination first, right? And some other persons would talk about the fact that what you're doing today, the activities that you do today, you take into consideration the future, and so you use you make use of things in a manner that does not use up all in the present and not leave anything for the future. But basically for us, it's about the destination. If you put the destination first and you think about the future, then you're going to have sustainable tourism. And it is built on a foundation of partnerships, and Alistair would have mentioned that we are partnering. The very foundation of sustainable destination management, sustainable tourism, sustainability is about partnerships. Then we have the pillars of sustainable tourism, and they are the social pillar, sociocultural pillar, the environmental pillar, and economic pillar. And put simply, those are people, planet, profit. Those are the three things that one needs to take into consideration when speaking about sustainable tourism. And as you can see from our calendar for Tourism Month, we are focused on the people and the planet. I heard Alistair when he spoke about some of the events that we're having. You will notice a lot of them are taking place in the open air, which speaks to the current COVID situation. Right? But it also speaks to the environment, being more exposed to the environment, because healing can also be come about through being in the environment. Interacting with nature can help us in dealing with the situation, the stresses of dealing with COVID and making the changes and all of that. So we are taking all of that into consideration, and our tourism now is about us. In the Destination Council, we say good for us, which is the citizens and residents, better for all. Whatever we have that is being done for us first at the local level will be just added value to anybody who chooses to visit. Or in some circles, they say if it's a good place to live and work, then it's a good place to visit.
Now, what have the council been doing to build capacity, promote education, develop awareness over this time?
Okay.
Period?
So since we had the lockdown, since we resumed work, we have had training for the members of the Destination Council. It comes back to the same thing. You can't give out what you yourself don't have in. So we did a capacity building session for the members of the Destination Council, where we looked at a vision for the next 5 years for the Destination Council in terms of our work. We came up with an action plan for the council, things that we're going to work on. Of course, we're not going to leave behind our plastic-free campaign. We have now revised it. It's now going to be called Plastic Be Gone. And that is because we are working in collaboration with the Department of Environment, which has already indicated their plan for the phasing out of single-use plastics over the next 5 years. And our plan coincides with that, because our plan is for the next 5 years. And we are simply going to be bringing about greater awareness of the need to reduce single-use plastics. We are hoping that even before a ban comes into place, our people would be so accustomed to not using single-use plastics based on the education that they would have received, that it would not be a challenge by the time it is introduced. We've also had training for persons in tourism businesses. So just about 2 weeks ago, we did the tourism, I Speak St. Kitts Culture and Heritage workshop for tourism businesses. And that training program went down extremely well. As a matter of fact, we had to turn back some persons because we wanted to be mindful of the COVID-19 protocols. So we had a limited number of spaces available. It was a really good exercise. We looked at music and dance, food and drink, traditional homes, and games we used to play. Those are the three sub-themes of the I Speak St. Kitts culture and heritage workshop. But the I Speak St. Kitts training program is actually a series of training programs. So for the past 3 years, we had done I Speak St. Kitts Sustainable Tourism, specifically for tourism businesses. This year, for the first time, we introduced culture and heritage, and we think it came at an opportune time. In the middle of what we are experiencing, one of the big things that we have as a destination is culture and heritage. One cannot debate the amount of heritage sites that are on St. Kitts alone terrestrially, and they're an equal number, if not more, in the marine environment. And so we thought it was timely to introduce this topic so that we have more options to offer to our guests when we have become more mindful of the carrying capacity of some of our attractions. And so we have to offer alternatives to them. So we introduced our participants to new areas, many of whom, when they did their evaluation, said to us they never even knew that Chateau de Poissy existed, because that's the site we took them for their field trip. They did not know it existed. And so they were able to be exposed to it. They learned so much about it. While we did the field trip, we were exposed to many different aspects of our culture, and we did not just take them from the training venue to the chateau. We actually did a driving tour of Bastille for them to point out the type of architecture they would have been seeing. So they learned some history. They understood why Church Street is called Church Street. They were taught why 4th Street is called 4th Street. We went to Fort Thomas Hotel. We did a stop there on our way to Chateau de Poissy. And that in itself is a whole training session. We just got a mere tip of the iceberg in that session. The persons were also enthralled with the fact that during that training session, we did not just speak about the food and drink, the traditional food and drink, they were exposed to it as well. So, for example, on the second day, for lunch, we had dumpling, saltfish, and mackerel. We also had black pudding and goat water. Right? So persons were able to experience that. The first day we had cook-up, the traditional cook-up with the pork and all the other things mixed in it. And people understood why we had something called cook-up. It's not just a style. It was a necessity, because you were cooking what you had available to you. You put everything in a one pot, right? So you got to understand that. We looked at the dance and music, and even I learned something new, because I did not realize the influence of the Irish in the masquerade dance. We always talk about the African, the Indian, and we talk about the French and the British, but the music is influenced by the Irish. So that came out in that workshop as well. We talk about the other troops. We had some things that we haven't seen for years that Mr. Stapleton, who was the facilitator, was able to share with us. For example, about a group that was called the Red Cross group that they've been trying to revive on Nevis. Because, you know, there's no St. Kitts culture without Nevis culture. They're intertwined, right? So we were exposed to that during the workshop. The persons were exposed to, for example, the Marby Back. And the younger members of the training group, the cohort, they don't know anything about Marby Back and so on. They know Marby. You can go and buy some Marby. He actually bought pieces of Marby Back for them to see during the training session. They experienced other things during the session. But what is important as well, because people would ask, what does culture and history have to do with sustainable tourism? Because most people think it's just related to the environment. So to begin the session, the very first day, the very first session, we had a presentation about sustainability and the 3 Ps of sustainable tourism. We gave them an example of what is being practiced by a local hotel. They were asked to identify the sustainable practices of that property. So that was one of the things. In addition to that, while all of this is taking place, we are also in the middle of revising the Heart of St. Kitts Sustainability Charter. Now, many persons would have heard me talk about Heart of St. Kitts foundation where we're trying to raise funds to support community projects, but not many persons would have been as exposed to the Sustainability Charter, although both of them were launched on the very same day. So we launched this thing as a means of allowing businesses to share their sustainability story, to support the businesses in terms of their sustainability practices, and also being able to achieve positive impacts in the destination as a whole, right? That's what the Sustainability Charter is. And we wanted to use the opportunity to highlight the fact that health and safety is a critical part of sustainable tourism, because people don't usually associate health and safety with sustainability, but it is actually one of the cogs in the wheel of sustainability. So what we've done, we've revised the charter. Before we had it had three main areas: natural resource management, we had operational management, and community participation as the three main themes of the Sustainability Charter. This time around, we are going to introduce a theme for compliance. We want persons who sign on to our charter to indicate that they are compliant and adhering to the COVID guidelines and the protocols. So yes, if you want to be a part of the charter, you do this. And we are hoping that businesses in St. Kitts would sign on to this and use it as a stepping stone to becoming certified. Just recently I was reading about another Caribbean destination, and they're boasting about how many of their hotels are green certified and on the earth check, and I've yet to hear of a property on St. Kitts that has reached that level. And this, we believe, because it demands a lot to be certified. All the demands of certification might be a bit much for somebody to start from zero and jump into certification. So we are saying to them, here's an opportunity to take a small step. Begin your sustainability practices. Practice using the Sustainability Charter. And we're not asking you to do it all at once. What we are asking is for people to apply two simple things. For example, in waste management, separate your recyclables. That's on the natural resource management. Turning off lights in rooms where nobody is. Simple things like that. And as you start to practice those things, eventually you're able to move on to the next level. You add another 2 in the next year. Then you add another 2 the next year. Pretty soon, you would have achieved all that's under the Sustainability Charter. And then you're ready to look at, hello, I'm ready to look at becoming certified, you know, as a sustainable hotel, a sustainable tour operator business, because there are different certification programs out there. Global Sustainable Tourism Council offers sustainability. There are others, especially in Europe. And if we're also going to be looking at Europeans, they demand these. One of the other things that we found out recently, and PS and I have been in a lot of webinars recently, and people keep talking about persons who are traveling now more than ever. They were asking for it before, but now more than ever, they're asking, what are the tourism businesses in the country they're planning to visit doing for the community? And so we have community participation as one of the themes in our Sustainability Charter, because if you're able to share this, then we can share your story saying you give back to the community in which you exist by doing programs. You do things for your staff or the community where your staff lives, programs for their staff, the children, all of those things. And that is the way we can help you to tell your story, because we're going to be reaching out to the people who ask these questions. We've had surveys shared with us where people are now demanding more information about how sustainable are the properties. Not only the properties they're staying at, they're going on excursions. They want to know what are the sustainability practices of the people offering the excursions. They want to know about the stores. They want to know how they're treating their staff. All of those are part of the whole sustainability program. So we've been working on revising this charter. We're going to roll out, the first phase of it is to roll out a survey to get feedback from our from our stakeholders, because one of the things in sustainability is when you're introducing programs, you must have consultations. And so we're going to share the survey. We're encouraging persons to participate. We want to hear from you because we do not believe we have all the ideas. We might have missed something. So we share it with you. You give us your feedback, and then we can tweak accordingly, because you are the ones who are expected to implement the program, although we will be providing you with guidance as you roll out the program. So those are some of the things. With respect to our tourism month, we will be having a beach cleanup next week, Saturday, as Alistair indicated, and we've chosen Majors Bay. We actually went and looked at several beaches. There were 3 beaches that came to our attention. But in the spirit of partnership, we got a call from youth department, because it's also youth month, and they were looking for a beach for their volunteers to clean, and we recommended Connery Beach because we had visited and we were concerned about Connery Beach. The other beach that was brought to our attention was Pump Bay. We did a site visit, but it was not as dirty to satisfy what we are hoping to achieve, the impact we want to make. So we got some information about Majors Bay, and we did a site. Well, one of our staff, we didn't even get to do the site visit. She said, Daniel, we don't need to go there. My family and I were in that area, and it really needs help. So we are going to go, because we know Majors Bay is one of our major turtle nesting beaches, right? So we are going to go to Majors Bay next week, Saturday. We want to be there to start cleaning at 7 a.m. So we will be leaving Basti at 6:30 a.m. We're going to go over to the beach, and as usual, when we're doing our cleanups, we don't just do the cleanup. There are 2 things that are standard for our beach cleanups. One is the education process. So before we start any cleanup, we do a little education. So probably we'll do something about the turtle nesting, because when we did Deep Bay, for example, because Deep Bay has the reef, we had somebody talk about the importance of reefs. So we're going to do an educational element to the beach cleanup, and secondly, we're going to separate our waste. Plastic waste will not go with other waste, so that we can look at the number of plastics, pieces of plastic, as opposed to other types of waste. And we always send this information into the Clean Seas app to measure the amount, and it's integrated into all the other cleanups that's done. So they use that data, and we can also use the data to share with our people, because documentation is key for us. One of the things that was found last year when we were doing our nomination for the award was that we did not have a lot of empirical data. So having been told that, we could do nothing less than to start collecting the data, documenting our activities. We have photos, I mean, so many photos now. We are writing things, we are recording everything. And so we are recording the information of our beach cleanups so that we can see and measure the impact as time passes. One of the things that we did in the Destination Council training that I told you about, the capacity building, is to focus on monitoring and evaluation. We had an actual training session on the monitoring and evaluation aspect of any project. And so that is what we are going to be emphasizing going forward for the next 5 years.
You know, the whole concept of sustainability doesn't really start with the Ministry of Tourism. It doesn't start with the Ministry of Agriculture. Sustainability starts on a personal level, in the home and so on. When you're brushing your teeth, do you leave the sink, the water going while you're brushing your teeth? And sometimes we don't even realize it. We're brushing our teeth and the tap is on and running. Water is being wasted. Do you turn your lights off? Do you throw your plastic cup just in the drain? You know, those are things. And I always heard my mother say, willful waste makes waffle want. You know?
That's an old adage.
Yes, and you don't hang your hat higher than you can reach it. You must cut your cloth to suit your coat and all that sort of thing. And these are really sustainable
practices,
lifestyle practices
Actually, Mr. Williams, I am surprised that Daniel did not say that I am living for the day when we do not have to tag the word sustainable in front of tourism, because tourism is supposed to have sustainability built into it. We need to understand that that is a natural part of any tourism program, because if tourism is going to be around for generations, and that is what we are doing, we are actually building a very solid foundation now. That is what we would like to believe, that we would have all of those sustainability practices built into everything that we are doing now, and we are going to set that example, model those behaviors, so it becomes almost natural for the next generations who are going to come behind us.
Yeah,
right?
because
So-
if we don't practice sustainability, then we are basically making ourselves extinct.
Of course.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Right? It's almost for want of a better word, it's almost selfish.
It is almost.
It is almost selfish. And I met a quote years ago, and I keep using it. Ask yourself, am I being a good ancestor?
Right.
I'm not dead as yet, but what am I doing
What's the
even now that
legacy?
I am alive, to leave that legacy, as Daniel said, to make sure that I have left this world
Better
in a
place.
good state, so that when my children come along, my grandchildren come along, they have something of quality to work with. You know? And so I suppose those are questions that will be, those rhetorical questions, those internal conversations that we need to begin having with ourselves, so that we remind ourselves. What also struck me is that a lot of the things that Daniel spoke about just now, they are some of the same things that are the protocols that we must observe. The cleanliness, washing of your hands, making sure that you look after the environment if you want the environment to be good to you, you know. And those are some of the same things that are coming back. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to understand that when we are not careful, things come back to haunt us. Things come back to haunt us. It happens in our daily lives, and it certainly is going to happen in tourism. So we want to spread that message now, that those 7 months that we had, I'm hoping that it would have given us an opportunity to engage in some introspection. That pause that we needed to identify those gaps, perhaps with all of the noise and the frenzy of what was taking place, and all of the ships coming and all of the planes coming and so on. We may have been missing some critical cues that we are forced now, with the lull, to pay attention. How are we going to do things differently, right? One of the things that I want to see happening, hopefully before I exit as a permanent secretary, is that we need to do a destination management survey. That assessment of the capacity, what each of the attractions that we have, what is its capacity, so that we don't just say, I'll call Brimstone Hill. As many persons as can go to Brimstone Hill on a particular day, you just say, well, go. You know, you want that empirical, scientific information that tells you on a daily basis, Brimstone Hill can only accommodate X number of persons. And then you leave it to breathe and to replenish and to reinvigorate itself and so on and so on. Because it happens in other destinations. They're telling you what the capacity is, right? Something that I didn't think about, but the same webinars that Daniel is talking about. A lot of persons now in the world, because of the social distancing, they're saying to us, do a lot of outdoor stuff, hiking and biking and so on and so forth. And so what has begun to happen is that people have begun to use a lot of the trails and some of the lesser known spaces more. But what you think is happening? Without realizing, you're putting pressure on those spaces now, right? So how are we going to have that balance? Yes, we must social distance. Yes, we want to carry our families out to have a good day. We don't want to be everybody crowded up in one space. But how are we going to do that in a very balanced way? How are we going to, again, the word partnership comes up. How is the Ministry of Tourism going to partner with the Department of Environment to ensure that we have enough trails that we can use, so that instead of the individual who perhaps used to only have 4 tours in a week because there were other things that people could have done. They could have gone on the buses and they could have driven around and so on and so forth. But more of the guests now are coming and saying, I want to do more outdoor stuff. So that person who only used to have 4 tours per week, they now have 12 tours per week. And if they're going to use the same trail, what kind of burden are we putting on that trail? Are we going to speak with the environment to open more trails now to make sure that you get value for money still? Wherever you go, it's very scenic, it's very enjoyable, you get a chance to have a memorable experience, but we are going to say on Mondays, these are the trails that we're going to use because we're giving these other trails an opportunity to rest and so on. Those are some of the critical questions perhaps that we hadn't given any thought to before, that we have now to take that pause and begin to think very seriously about how we are going to handle this thing in tourism.
Yes. Now, Mrs. Morton, what realistically is your expectation for travel? Let's face it. Mm-hmm. We have opened our borders at the end of October. But while we are reopening our borders, other places are shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Spain, France, Belgium, recently England. I think they're going to go into a national lockdown from tomorrow,
mm-hmm.
starting at midnight tonight. We are talking about other countries that are in this CARICOM bubble, and the bubble bursts in some of them.
Yes, in most of them.
In most of them, the CARICOM bubble. And then we heard last night from the Prime Minister
mm-hmm.
that we have withdrawn
from the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So the bubble really burst. And British Airways will not come
mm-hmm.
because of what is happening in the UK and so on. The United States, there's a surge there
mm-hmm.
coming out of big Trump rallies and so on that you see there, Make America Great Again,
mm-hmm.
and so on. And what can we really expect at this time for travel? There are restrictions, a 14-day quarantine, you have to take a PCR, a COVID-19 test.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go certain places, and all of that, because everyone wants to keep their people safe
mm-hmm.
and protected.
That's true.
So what realistically do you expect of travel at this time?
I'll answer you by saying this, Mr. Williams. We were having a similar conversation coming up together in the vehicle. And I was saying, we cannot insulate ourselves from the rest of the world forever. The time will come, the time has come, when we have done due diligence. We are satisfied, the persons in authority, the scientists, the doctors, the experts who we have resident here are satisfied that we have done the necessary due diligence. We have some of the most stringent protocols anywhere in the world, from what are very comprehensive, very robust. And so we all have choices to make. The island destination has its choices to make. The traveler has his or her choice to make as to where he's going to go. However, we have put certain stipulations in place, and we must be vigilant. Whatever tests the guests must undergo, we have to be vigilant to make sure that they have undergone those tests. The persons at the airports, the immigration officers, the customs officers, all those persons who are at the front line, the vanguard, have to make sure that they do what they ought to do. If we pick up somebody who is coming in, because mind you, we are saying 3 days before you travel, you must carry out these tests. And it can happen that when you jumped on the flight, you were nice and all well and good. You began having symptoms while you were coming here. If we are vigilant, our systems are working the way that they ought to work, we should pick it up at the airport. And we do have systems in place for dealing with that. Because, listen, I don't want to sound callous, but life goes on. Life goes on. And we have to see about livelihoods. it's life, it's livelihoods. So we have the systems in place. It's for us to make sure that the systems work. The systems are not going to work themselves. We have to make sure that the systems work. It is about us as Kititians being compliant, adhering to what the protocols are. You go to work, there are standards that you must abide by those standards. You're supposed to wear your mask, wear it properly. And I like to say, listen, because some of us, we can become very conceited. I ain't putting on any mask, and you say, if you're not going to do it for yourself, think of a loved one then for whom you would want to do it. Your grandmother who is immunocompromised, or a child, or, find some reason why you're going to make yourself adhere to what the protocols are, because there is no foolproof strategy that is 100%. The best we can do is to make sure that we minimize the risk. And we know what the behaviors are to make sure that we minimize the risk. Wear the mask, sanitize often, wash your hands often, keep your hands out of your face, avoid crowded places, and so on. If most of us do that, if we continue to adopt the all-of-society approach that we have done so very well at, we have been commended, the Centers for Disease Control and so on. So we have demonstrated that we are resilient people, that we are people who are intelligent, and that we can apply all of the various rules. Let us continue to do that, because we have to open the destination, and we want to keep it open so that the various businesses, the stakeholders can make a decent living, and people can come here and enjoy the island, the federation that we call home.
Mm-hmm. Now the airport is now open. What do we expect in terms of commercial flights? When do they really start?
I actually
international
have
flights, and during the lockdown, when the airport was closed, how has the destination been marketed?
The St. Kitts Tourism Authority did a fantastic job in the interim while persons were not able to travel. And a lot of it was videos. They didn't do still shots because people want movement. People want to see, the island in all its beauty and its glory, and the palm trees waving and people moving on the beach and that type of thing and so on. So they did a fantastic job. And they referred to it as aspirational travel. So you can't actually physically come, but we're telling you that when we open up and you get the opportunity to come and you meet all of the guidelines, the stringent protocols and so on, come on down and be with us. And this is what you can expect to enjoy. And there were some wonderful videos. I think a lot of it is about the whole idea of wanderlust. So you have cabin fever, you have been in your house locked down all this time. Come to St. Kitts, we guarantee you that it's going to be safe. We guarantee you that we are a responsible destination. We guarantee you that a lot of reputable organizations have assessed us and have given us the nod. Come down to us, we're going to look after you. So that is basically what has been done to make sure that we kept the Federation front of mind. So a lot of that type of advertising took place. And I'm sure that there was some just ordinary folks as well. Facebook, social media being what it is, you would have posted your pictures so that people can see what a beautiful island we have. And persons have actually been asking about St. Kitts. Even yachting. We got something from Christoph Harbour the other day that said a number of yachts have been expressing an interest in coming. Not just now, but into 2021. Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of the flights, what can we expect?
Well, the first flight, AA, I have some information here that was shared with me. Airlift update number 3. So we are kept informed practically on a daily basis because the situation, as you would imagine, is quite fluid. Things change. Last night, we heard that we are no longer in the bubble. Up to yesterday afternoon when I went home, we were in the bubble. But things change, and so we have to make the necessary adjustments. So from what I've been made to understand, our first flight comes in on Saturday, 7th November. That is an AA flight. AA Miami SKB 318. And it appears to be coming in close to capacity. And then after that, Saturdays and Wednesdays, I think there's something here with a Sunday and so on as well. We have a number of AA flights that are coming in. And that is the information that we have at the moment. Of course, things may change. We hope that they don't. Things may change, but this is the information. The first flight comes in on Saturday.
Okay.
Coming.
Okay, good. Now, in terms of cruise, the cruise industry, we won't be seeing any cruise ships just now.
Not from what we have been made to understand.
Right, because cruise ships can be incubators for the virus.
Yes. So the no-sail order is still in place. And the SKT, again, is in constant contact with the cruise lines. And I am confident that when things begin to improve, they will begin to signal months ahead that, listen, the likelihood is that we would be sailing by X time or Y time. But for now, no. Nothing, no word about cruise coming on stream right now.
No. Alistair, have we started to prepare for the music festival next year? Are there plans on the way for that?
There are plans. We actually had a meeting with the NEOC to start some initial discussions. We are putting some plans in place, going on the assumption that yes, this, the COVID-19 pandemic is still around and so on, and hoping that by next year, June, it may clear, but in the event it don't, we have a fallback plan. So we have started to engage some of the key players, some of the artists and service providers who have, who we contracted or engaged this year for the festival, and obviously that did not come off. So we are in discussions with them, and we are hoping that there will be some light at the end of the tunnel come June next year. But we cannot wait until next year, so we have begun doing what we have to do, and we are hoping for the best come June.
Because of course you know that the music festival involves quite a lot of travel. People traveling to the federation and so on for the music festival. And it's a large crowd of people gathered and all of that. So
right, we are looking at other options, because there are some destinations that have had festivals shortly after a lockdown period and so on, and most of them have sought to use cabanas, so it's a more condensed version. It's more secured and secluded, a more secluded environment, so that it is easier to track. So in the event of any eventuality, you can track who are a part of the party, and that sort of thing. So we are looking at all the models that are out there, and we are still planning as if the pandemic is still around. Yes. And if by then there's a vaccine or some other thing, at least it's so much the better, for us.
Okay, now we are going to go to the phone lines. The numbers to call are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the overseas number 1239-645-4500. We await your calls. Okay. Tourism. The industry that has been most battered by the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the Caribbean and so on, and it recalls for rebranding of our goods, our services, our tours. What would you like to see emerging in the sector, Mrs. Morton?
This is a question that is pretty dear to my heart. During the pandemic, when the borders were closed and our society reopened, enough of our tourism businesses realized that they had to rely on the domestic market. And a number of them became very innovative in appealing to, in marketing to the domestic market in ways that perhaps we had not seen before. And that is something that I would like to see continue. I would like to see that momentum, that we keep that momentum, that domestic market, our local people. So the consumer was just as hungry for the product, because perhaps when we had foreigners coming in our mind sometimes say, oh, that is for the visitor, that ain't for me, and so on. But you heard Darlene talking about these culture and heritage tours, how much people are learning, rediscovering their own island, learning so much more about themselves. There's so much to learn on St. Kitts about who we really are. And so that equips you to become a brand ambassador. You can talk about your island in a very informed way when you have done the tours.
One of the things that people might see as being limited in that is that we are extremely small destination. And there are, for example, if you have very big countries, maybe I can leave from London and I can go all the way down, and so on. It's a huge country, and you can leave one place and go very far and see something else and so on. While we are very small, how many people have been to Brimstone Hill? But sometimes you're right, because they don't know the history and so on. Diane?
But we also have the advantage of having two islands.
Exactly, Nevis.
So you can go away to Nevis, right? And you would be surprised by the number of locals who have never been to Brimstone Hill. I once had never been to I went to Black Rocks with one of our training sessions that we had, and the young lady said that was the first time she had, and that was because it was a part of the training. The field trip, we took some persons to Black Rocks. Well, I assume most people had gone to Black Rocks, so we divided the group into and sent half to Charles Fort. Now, if people had not been to Black Rocks, people don't even know there's something named Charles Fort, right? We took persons to Charles Fort. We're getting people, and that is what we've been doing, getting people to learn more about their destination, because people still rely on word of mouth. That's what TripAdvisor is, word of mouth advertisement. And so, costs less, but does so much more. And if the locals experience it, they come, as Mrs. Morton said, become our brand ambassadors. They're the best ones. That's why we have that program called I Speak St. Kitts. I want to be able to speak so many things about St. Kitts. So we're doing culture and heritage now. Who knows, next year we might be speaking St. Kitts hiking. We might be speaking St. Kitts water sports. So that our people can be at the front lines and share, so that we don't have visitors leaving. Because I remember years ago when we did visitor satisfaction surveys, and we listed the options and we asked people, what did you do while you were here? Some people say, well, I did not know you offered that or that or that. And that is because sometimes they ask people who are at the front desk in hotels, or they ask the waiter or waitress, what can I do? But they don't know. So that is why we started that training program, so that anybody can ask them. They're able to say, have you been to? And if the person says, I've been to Brimstone Hill already, I came here 2 years ago. You say, have you been to Charles Fort? Have you been to Chateau de Poincy? Have you been? And you start listing things. Now the person decide, well, I would have to come back to St. Kitts another time. And that is what we want, repeat visitors.
The other thing is, a lot of things that we think we know, we don't know. There's a difference between going to Brimstone Hill
Yes.
and touring Brimstone Hill with a knowledgeable guide. We have over 250 certified historical sites on St. Kitts. 250. In our lifetime, we can't possibly go through all of those. So a lot of things that we do, and we do on our own. We think that we know these things. Oh, I went there, but do you really know the history? Have you gone there with someone who can really fill in the gaps for you and help you to say, well, I didn't realize that it's because you're here. But Diane said, she said the masquerade all this time. Nobody had ever said to her that the music is Irish.
We have
Right?
a caller.
Yes.
Working for you, good afternoon.
This is Bucket Media.
Hello?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, panelists. Bucket, I just want to say that tourism is doing some wonderful job. I must commend Daniel and Alex, Mr. Williams, for the plastic promotion that they was pushing. Because I've seen a lot of persons now doing the backyard gardening, right? And using those plastic containers that we throw away now to put plants in it. So which means that the tourism is doing something good, you know. So I really want to commend you on that and keep pushing for the plastic. I know Nevis seems to be ahead of us, but I want you all to continue as we gradually move away from the single plastic use. Other than that, the tourism are doing a good job. What I would like to see is some more collaboration with the tourism and the taxi association, where when they having events, they can liaise with the head of the tourism, right? So at least they can be a part of whatever event. Like I think this week is tourism week, and you all went to the church. I was, well, one of the presidents stated on another station that they wasn't invited. So going forward, like I say, it's all about communication. I don't think it was anything deliberate. Normally when you have those kind of stuff, it is done at the administration level, right? But just have more collaboration and we will have a better St. Kitts and Nevis and a better tourism product. So to the team there, good job. You all have a good pace, right? And want to continue the taxi guys them too, to liaise with the peers, you know, have meetings, regular meetings, share your concern, and some of these little hiccups will be ironed out. Mr. Williams, continue to have a good show working for you.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leroy,
Good afternoon, sir.
and your team.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for your information and education and enlightenment. Leroy,
Yes.
as usual, you're always doing a great job, and I tell you already, I would not like to be in court and you throwing me because I will get jail even though I'm innocent. I like the way you do your duty, you leading your job. Now I have a question and a little comment, and I have to commend the tourism department for improving the office of the tourism department. I could tell you this tourism department, it has come a long way, because sometime there in the 70s, when people used to just have the money and you go buy a vehicle and get a green number plate and jump in and call it taxi. Now the question is this: is there a learning institution so that anybody want to go into tourism taxiing, they can go there, or they should go there and learn the history about the island, or the island, St. Kitts Nevis? Because in the 70s, like I say, one time there was a gentleman, he had the little money and he bought a car and he was running taxi. And when they were going west, when they come off a Challenger's Hill going again in Bloody River, one of the tourists saw the sign marked Bloody River, and she asked him in their own kind of accent language, what happened here? Why is this place called Bloody River? And he'll inform about the history of the country. Me no know. I understand they had a Tower fight there and down here the blood run. But it's a good thing the people them couldn't understand his dialect. So he get away with that. So because if he had knowledge about what happened there in Stoneford River, he would have been able to explain to them why it is called Bloody River. So the question is, like I said, is there a learning institution for people who want to get into taxiing to learn the history of the country? Thanks for listening. You're all doing a great job. Keep it up. Okay.
Working for you, good afternoon. Hello? Okay. Working for you, good afternoon. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yes, this jam down here. Good afternoon, Ms. Morton and Daniel.
Good afternoon.
I have some concerns, and I wanna tell Ms. Morton and Daniel about them. I jam don't want to know why that septic thing can't finish as yet. And the other one is, I personally want to know, Ms. Morton, why is it the Minister of Tourism is not dialoguing with the taximan them as he should? And I want to know as well, why nobody from the tourist department gone over to the Port Center to talk to them stakeholders over there? They spend millions of dollars to make us a prime cruise ship destination. Where did they so? Come on!
I didn't hear the last one.
I want to know why nobody from the tourist department gone over and put Zante go laze with these people. Not even the NOC gone over there go laze with these people. We cannot treat them like that, you know. I'm the ambassador, so I will speak. Come on, they play a major role in this country in tourism, and somebody gotta get up off the behind and go over there and speak with them. A lot of money involved over there. They pay no rent and nobody say none to them. Come on, we could do better. We could do better. I know we could do better. Have a good day, Karin. I know you're trying your best, and Daniel.
Okay, jam down. Okay. So we have a few things that were suggested.
Okay. The learning institutions, I'll do that one. There isn't a learning institution per se, but every so often there are courses that are held, certification and recertification courses. For example, we wait until a number of persons, instead of having to train Lesroy by himself, and then train Dianil by herself, and then train Alistair by himself, and so on. We wait and see how many applications we're going to have. We also have to monitor the taxi system, because you don't want to overwhelm the taxi system either. You don't want to have 800 and something persons in the taxi, and then everybody is telling you, I'm not getting any work. So there are certain ways in which we monitor when we would need to bring, new persons in. If we have persons who have left the system, God forbid somebody has died and so on, there are certain ways in which we bring new people into the system. And there are certification courses, recertification courses annually. And that is how people become taxi drivers, how they enter the taxi fraternities. I don't know if that answers the person's question about learning institution. And a lot of the material is about history and culture and how to present themselves, making sure that they know as much as they possibly can about the island, how they're supposed to engage the guests, how they're supposed to interact with the guests, and so on. So it's quite broad-based, but a lot of the information that is required for you to make sure that you can inform the guest about the destination, that type of information is provided.
In addition to that, the taxi drivers can also take some things on themselves. The training we just had, for example, was about culture and heritage. We did have a couple taxi drivers who came. We did a walking tour of Bastia earlier this year. Everybody was invited to participate, and that includes taxi drivers. The hikes that we have, that Alistair spoke about, they are not just hikes. So for the younger taxi drivers and stuff like that, you are always welcome to come to these events, because when we do these things, as I said, we don't just do a hike. It's an educational process. And so in addition to the learning sessions that are there, and we've always said to taxi drivers, membership to the National Trust, Brimstone Hill Fortress Society, you're encouraged to become members of those societies. They give you access to books, documents. They have activities where they share information. For example, just recently, the National Trust had 2 exhibits. The Christina exhibition, they had the Sir Dr. Kennedy Simmons exhibition, which has history in it. And they are sitting, some of them are sitting in the circus. You can just go down, pay the $5, go and learn something to enhance your business, because if everybody knows the Batik and Brimstone Hill, what do you have to differentiate yourself, right? So if you can learn a little more, you can add a little more to your tour, right? And make your business that much more valuable and much more in demand. Because you add more, you try to learn as much as you can. Ask questions. There are people at the Ministry of Tourism, Mr. Stapleton, who did the training. He's always available because he himself is a taxi operator, and he has made himself available here to these persons to attend sessions that might be put on by their association, because that's one of the things. The associations do not necessarily have to wait on the Ministry of Tourism to organize a training. Just recently, I'm a part of a small group, and I was telling them about the training that we had on culture and heritage. And the leader of the group said to me, well, Daniel, I want him to come and do a session first. You know, we're going to do a tour of Bastia, because we were emphasizing in the training the resilience of St. Kitts and the people of St. Kitts. And she said, well, I want this group to see, based on the buildings around, the story of the resilience of the people of St. Kitts. And taxi drivers, she wants to reach out to him. Taxi drivers can do the same thing as groups, get people to come in and present to them, especially in this downtime. Get people to come in and share this information with you so that you can enhance your business and be so much more in demand.
Yeah. You know what I've seen in places like London and Spain and so on, is that you have a taped, when you go on these tours, it's a taped tour. So they have the different stops, and you put your earpieces in, and you're basically hearing in your own language.
We are thinking about heading in that direction. We are thinking about heading in that direction because the cruise lines have expressed a desire for that to happen, because we have, especially where the cruise lines are concerned, we have a number of persons who come. The Germans come, we have people who come, you know, who are French-speaking people, Spanish-speaking people, and so on and so forth. So it is something that is being looked into very seriously. So who knows, maybe in the next year or two, the next couple of months, that you might actually hear that that is something that we have invested in.
But the caller made a good point, because tour guides should really know about the history.
Yes, of course.
But does the ministry have any sort of a training for tour guides? Not really. Do you have any sort of a training for tour guides?
We just introduced over 80 persons were trained between 2018 and 2019. There were farmers, you know, people who, some of them were taxi drivers, some of them were just normal persons who live in communities who think, and we did it by community actually. We actually did it by community.
Okay.
And so it was Keon and St. Paul's and, you know, persons in Bellevue and Challengers and so on. And over 80 persons were trained as tour guides. We had a 5-day session in each community, and 3 days were for the theory and 2 days were for the actual physical walking, some of the trails and that type of thing. And about 80 persons have graduated from that particular, and free of cost, I might add. The ministry took up the tab for that. You know, so it's about persons' interest as well.
Right. Okay, well, we're almost out of time. We have 5 more minutes. I know that in the tourism industry, there's a lot of synergies and partnerships in the sector. And they are important, and even more so important now.
Yes.
Because you have to recover. Your stakeholders are important. And Jamdown was making a point, and you know, and I kind of I don't want to get into his thing, but I kind of understand what he's trying to say. And I think that's very same synergies and partnerships in the sector, how we reach out to people and that sort of a thing that is going to help in the whole recovery process.
Yes. I agree with you. The synergies and partnerships are extremely important, and we try as much as possible. You heard Alistair saying, for example, that we are partnering with the ministry that deals with energy and so on, so that when they're having their activity, I think it's this Saturday coming up, Alistair, this Saturday coming up, that we would also be, making sure that we make the rounds with them. And while they're giving out their bulbs, most likely we are going to be giving out some handbags and things that people could use, so that we finish away with the single-use plastic. We are going to be giving away the plastic cups and so on. I'm sure Daniel has a little package put together, because she is the plastic-free guru, and she makes sure that, whenever the opportunity presents itself, she, talks about the alternative to the single-use plastics. So those are some of the synergies. You heard me talk a little earlier about environment. What are we going to do? As a matter of fact, I have a meeting on Thursday with the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, because those are some of the areas that we are going to examine. Where can we, work together? We worked with the Ministry of Agriculture about 2 to 3 weeks ago. We had a launch of the backyard garden down at Eco Park. So, and we are always very open to working with whichever department, whichever ministry, whatever we need to do, the private sector, to get the word out that there are things that we can do. As a matter of fact, we get more done when we team up, when we pool our resources. It makes our the money, the limited financial resources that we have, we can stretch it a bit more, and all other resources that we have. If everybody comes and everybody puts a little something, it means we can make whatever we want to do go that much further. What we're saying, though, is that apart from the ministry going about and helping to bring these synergies together, people within the private sector can work together with each other as well. It doesn't always have to be something that is instigated or that is managed or that is chaired by the Ministry of Tourism. Daniel made a very good point. We do not have all of the ideas. There are things that we are going to miss that perhaps, other persons have been thinking about, and come to us with the ideas. We welcome that. We want to hear from you. We want to hear where are those linkages that you see that people can work together to make a much more competitive, a much more exciting, a much more appealing tourism product. We are always willing to listen, and where we can to lend a hand and to help to implement.
Good. Do we have anything else to say?
Before we wrap up, I just want to, especially with the opening of the borders, to remind people of what is our responsibility individually and collectively: the wearing of the masks, the proper wearing of the masks, the social distancing, avoiding large crowds, making sure that high-touch areas, we sanitize them often in the office, the doorknobs, the desktops. You go to the washroom, make sure that you wash your hands, properly. Do what we need to do to make sure that we are compliant, and that in our own way, we are helping to reduce the spread of COVID. We can't say that often enough, and we can't say too much.
Alistair?
Well, I just want to remind persons that this is Tourism Month. We want you to come out and support most those activities that you can support. I mean, given what is happening with the COVID-19 pandemic, but although we are stressing safety and security, we want you to find some time to come out and support us. This Saturday is the Bulb and Bar Hop in collaboration with the Ministry of Energy around the island, so come out on the main road and support us. On Tuesday the 10th is Energize Soca Size session at Flow Grounds, so remember to come out and let's make sure that we have a fit nation so that we can go forward as far as tourism is concerned. And next Wednesday is our family feud at Vibes Beach Bar, 8 p.m. sharp. Come out, let's have some fun, while at the same time you learn what is happening with tourism and what is our vision for the future.
I just want to end one thing. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, innovation and sustainability are the new normal.
That's the new normal. Yes, we have to be innovative, especially in this climate in which we're in. It has basically affected all of us in some way, and we can't wait to put it behind us, but at the very same time we have to do all that we can to mitigate against the threat that looms and continues to loom with the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you to all three of you.
Thank you for
to
having us.
Diane, to Alistair, and to Mrs. Morton. Thank you very much for coming and being a part of this discussion today. Very, very timely and very, very important on our mainstay, which is basically tourism. And maybe down the line, as you know, we have to rethink this whole thing of the tourism economy and so on. We see how fragile it can be. You know, just one pandemic, a disaster, and so on. So we have to have a diversification in terms of the economy, and that can be a discussion. Thank you to all of our listeners and our callers on today's Working For You program. Next week we will be back with another edition of Working For You. Until then, take care. I am Les Roy Williams. Thank you so much.